Smart Railway Room session as part of the buildingSMART International Standards Summit, Rome 2023. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our online attendees, and thank you for joining. My name is Claire Whittaker, and I will be your moderator today. Today's session is titled Workshop Procurement Support Based on IFC 4.3 Data Exchanges. Our speakers for this are up on the screen. This session is scheduled to last 90 minutes. The session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to our speakers, I would like to remind you that this is a hybrid event. For online attendees, your microphones will remain muted for the duration of this session. If you wish to ask a question, please use the chat box in the control panel. For those in the room, please try to keep background noise to a minimum and raise your hand if you wish to make a comment or a question. I would also like to bring to your attention that buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider and are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. Please excuse us, so there'll be a short delay while we just load all the slides, and then we'll get going, and I'll hand over to Andreas.
Thank you very much, Claire. Now, would be great to see the slides here. Okay, so we'll take some time. In the meantime, what's going to happen now? As soon as the slides are available, you will see a QR code with a Miro link, which is the major platform of today's work. And I'll give you a short intro about what you'll find over there and where you would, we would like you to put your comments or your questions or your ideas into the Miro board. And at the end, we plan approximately 20 minutes for a summary and a discussion. There will be quite some material here. We have been providing a mind map about what could affect IFC 4.3 based procurement processes. We provided some material about potential quality assurance checking mechanisms to check the quality of the delivered documents, the delivered models based on the IFC 4.3. And we provided you a quite comprehensive overview about the business analysis done in our current project, which is called Applying IFC 4.3 for Rail. And we have not only the business process models, the process maps, but we also have a quite comprehensive list of use cases. The business process models and the use cases, they are pictures. So you don't have to read much. It's mostly image output provided in a standardized way of doing process modeling and business analysis. And then in addition, we have a commenting area and discussion area where we started with 5 questions to you. Where you might have ideas, where you might have answers, where you might be inclined to join your provide your input of your future plans. And then there's of course any other topic, any other option to talk about. In the meantime, you of course can address myself, but also my colleagues who are here in the room, if you have questions intermediately. So it hasn't been to be completely digitally using Miro. We are also prepared to take your input and put it into the Miro on your behalf. All right. Are we? Okay. Now it's really important to have these slides here, because in the slides we will have the QR code, which you can then photograph and take as an. Okay.
This is the QR code, so please scan it and tell me if it works. If not.
Andreas, I propose to summarize our discussion for all. It's possible there? Okay. What we propose is to present a little bit the mind map made by Andreas, because I'm not sure that everybody could look at it on the Miro board. So it is a very interesting input we have to think about this topic of procurement for IFC 4.3. And then I will summarize the discussion we had with a small group there about how to make the first step of this implementation in of IFC 4.3 in the contracts.
Well, what you see on the screen now is part of the mirror board. The mirror board as such, not quite sure whether it's readable, if it's shown at the whole. It was starting with a discussion about how can IFC 4.3 be used doing procurement, what are interesting aspects, and in preparation of this workshop we came up with some ideas, and while I'm walking you through those ideas, Vincent will enter the presentation whenever there's a comment from the working group at the middle of the room. It's not in a specific order, but if you look at it, you can distinguish IFC requirements in several groups. One group I would call is the global group, essentially stating what every IFC-capable software on the world should conform to have a very basic usability, generic or global. And that's also what the buildingSMART validation service, as it's currently defined, will support, is already supporting and will support in the future to an even extended topic. On the other end, you have the typical individual project. The individual project is a specific building where some architect is making a plan and some building engineers are doing the calculations and somebody is constructing it. And now in the infrastructure world, there are things in between. In the infrastructure world, rail business for instance, there are some types of constructions which are repeated many times each year. Several types of contracts repeated 50 times, 100 times, 200 times a year, depending on the size of your network. So we have repeatable and identical projects, and this has a quite, I would assume, interesting consequence for the way how you do your procurement and how you look into it. And then there's another thing which I would call the industry-specific level. The rail business as such is following some very global engineering principles. The traffic is controlled by the rails. The rails are connected by the switches, and you do have quite standardized way of energy supply, and you do have this major issue of the safety systems, of signaling, of interlocking, all this kind of stuff together in modern times with telecommunication and automation computer. So that was behind this proposal to first think about what's your level of discussion when talking about procurement. Then, concerning open exchange formats, what we see all the time is that there are quite different levels of quality of exporting, importing functionality of the software. And looking into this, you have the software implementation quality, you have the quality of the model itself, of the content of the model, of the structure of the model, and then the methods of quality assurance and certification to make sure that you have the certain level of quality available. And I see that we had here some comments. I'm quite sure whether. Okay, I wait till Vincent is coming back. Another aspect doing procurement in the public space is always the question of what can you put into the contract to have a fair contract, so that it's possible for every interested party to offer their services to you. And here there's kind of specifications which in the perfect world would be in a situation of a legal norm is relevant. We have international norms. ISO is in our world very important. Here in Europe we have these European norms which are to a large extent part of the legal system. You have still national norms here in Europe, but of course in the other countries around the globe. And then very often we have company specifications. Specifications by a specific large company. SNCF is a huge company. Deutsche Bahn is a huge company. They have their own manuals, their own regulations. And that's also something which has to be taken into consideration when you think about applying of a specific software specification, software norm to this process. I'm just walking through. Do you want to make a comment now? I'm here with the kind of norms and the open exchange format.
Not at the moment. Maybe you can finish
Okay, so
in 2 minutes, and then I summarize what we have talked about.
Okay. The next aspect is the type of the asset. Running assets, buildings, two parts of the railway system which are used everywhere, and then the central part of the linear assets, or as I would propose for the future when talking about is the networked assets. Yeah? From the building construction side, it looks like a linear element. In reality, it's an interconnected network which has to function, where you have to make sure that your planning is consistent. And I'm not going into this detail. It's just a list of the elements which are now in the focus of our current work in providing the software industry with test plans for checking the software. On the other side, if we go there, there's the question, you remember, we are having the situation where we have many repeated projects, many repeated individual contracts, the question of reusability. I know there are object type libraries, all this kind of stuff, but there are other aspects, of course, too, requirements descriptions and contract templates. These are also aspects which would be of interest when talking about IFC 4.3 in procurement. The contract type itself could also be of relevance, design work, construction work, maintenance work, other kind of services. Then I see Stefan brought into the discussion the question of specific software functionality like quantity takeoff or checking modeling standards or enforcing documentation standards. And then we have as a last topic the question of what's motivating using international standards, what's motivating applying IFC 4.3 in this process type. Very often there are simply legal requirements, public tendering requirements. Here in Italy, each public infrastructure project of a certain size has to be documented in an open format. It's a legal requirement here. Another aspect is that many assets which are used to set up the rail system have a quite long lifetime. Average switch could be 30 years in usage, a bridge 100 years, 150 years, not even talking about a tunnel or so. So for them it's really also the question how to make sure that if digital documentation is required, that this digital documentation will be available in 30 years' time. That's another major motivation to do this. Okay, this was a short walkthrough through this first mind map, and now if you may take over.
Yes, I just want to summarize the discussion we have with the people who are there from maybe mostly European chapters on organizations. About the question that is here, how to express requirements in tender documentation about the application of IFC 4.3. The context is we need to have something fast. We have to publicly explain what are the expectations of a group of appointing parties regarding the application of IFC 4.3. We need a basic first generation of requirements that can explain to all appointed parties and software vendors what we want to implement. Now we have this new release of IFC, and also what we have learned during the past 4 or 5 years in the railway projects and the infra projects regarding how to correctly express the requirements about the modeling. So the discussion was very interesting because if we want to have a good response to those requirements, we have to give visibility to the ecosystem. So the suggestion we have is to define just first deliver a first document, maybe short, but a first document that explains the basic requirements you have, and to organize how to make this document evolve in the time, and to have a sort of configuration management of those requirements so that we can give visibility to the ecosystem and to manage it correctly in each organization and at several levels. At international levels, maybe we have common requirements at international levels. We have maybe some common requirements at continental level, because, for example, in Europe we have the same regulation about the public procurement, and there are some other continents that are a common regulation regarding public procurement, and at a local level. So I think we can explain that in this first document. We can manage requirements at several levels. So I think the conclusions of the discussion is we shouldn't go into so much detail now about requirements, common requirements we should express, but we should deliver a document that explains the types and the hierarchy of the requirements that are to be addressed in the BIM execution plan or in the tender documentation. So it's the proposal of this small group there, and some of the people there are volunteer to work on a group on this topic. So suggestion is to the right room. So Vincent, maybe it may be a new small project in the right room regarding this first document that could be challenged by everybody, and we can find a smart, smooth way like a sprint to manage it, because the purpose is to have a small document, and maybe we can deliver it in a short time if we have the adapted way to work on it with the relevant participants, etc. So
for me sounds good. Maybe it's a kind of activity proposal or something like that. Mm-hmm. So let's start it after Rome with a small call. So please leave a note on the mural board who is interested in joining that kind of initiative. And yeah, we can do it very short term, right? Okay.
That's it. I think maybe you have to you want to add something, the small group or the other? If you have some comments
I was
about that.
just wondering to know if anyone that was not in the chat in the middle of this room, if nobody or if somebody else wants to join the discussion around these requirements, perhaps it will be yeah.
I missed the mirror because the internet doesn't.
Exactly. So.
So for me it's blind.
I think we have not so much to say about that, but the conclusion is to be not too detailed, but to structure the approach of how to commonly give visibility to the ecosystem about what is expected about the IFC 4.3 implementation through the procurement documentation.
So last call, any other questions, any other comments? In case, yes?
One of the issues I think with procurement is to, as a client, do a forward commitment procurement that we're saying we will from next year procure on 4.3 version, blah, blah, blah. So we will tell the market that we from a certain point will do some requirement and then stick to that promise to make sure that the suppliers can start preparing for a shift. And the way that we have done together with the Nordic authorities is go out with letters telling our intentions and trying to commit on dates and versions and procurement. But I think a very important thing is that to stick with those promises and really be firm on what we have promised to the market. So those suppliers that actually has committed themselves to achieve that will also be rewarded with the projects and so on. So that's not the actual procurement. It's more of an we'll say forward procurement policy. So that's I think that's quite important also to maybe also as a community communicate that somebody is doing that. So maybe have a list of all the owners or companies that do these promises that we will next year have 100 projects with 4.3, or next year for that we will start from this and this and this. So you can communicate that to the market, so people that is doing investment and putting down money know that this will be rewarded by projects further on. So that's, I think it's quite important. You forget that sometimes because you work internally and you say, now I have the requirement. And everybody was very confused because it suddenly become a requirement and they're not prepared for that. And also, on the other hand, if we do say something all the time and we never come out with this procurement requirement, then people are putting money and time in something that is not beneficial for them. So this forward procurement commitment, I think, is quite important.
Just one last comment. I think it's very important what you say regarding the maturity of the implementation in the softwares, because we cannot ask for something that we know that cannot be supported by the softwares as we know at that time. So we have to manage several levels of requirements regarding the time the softwares needs to implement some usage in their software. So we have to work on it.
This is have been used quite a lot with work safety and climate issues and stuff like that, and even with use of materials that we from next year we will not allow this use of these materials and so on. So this has been done earlier. So there is a formal commitment procurement concept that can be related to this market. So this is nothing new for the IFC or buildingSMART. This is done quite a lot in other areas. So I think but you should adapt to that way of communicating and creating this plannable future for the suppliers.
Okay, thank you very much. It's, in my opinion, an absolute important point. Thank you. Last call. 2 minutes past the time for lunch. In case that, yeah, there's one call.
Good morning, everyone. I will represent CR-BIM to give a conclusion of these questions. We think that in tender document, we need to specify the requirement for the IFC format for exchanging information, and need to specify the level of detail required for the IFC 4.3 models. And also, we need to provide guidelines for the creation of IFC 4.3 models and specify the software applications that will be used to create and exchange IFC 4.3. For the second question, we have strong willingness to use IFC 4.3 models. And for the third question, I think that there are 4 domains in IFC real project, and many other measures such as the bridge and the tunnel, which are completed by the infrastructure room, and maybe this standard completed by infrastructure room may not be applicable to China and needs to be validated. So I think that in the future, the IFC standard will be transferred to China according to the requirement and to adapt to the localization needs. For the first question, I think that the localized applications will be made based on IFC achievements. The documents will be sorted out if if there are any issues, so that this document can be an update requirement for the next version of our IFC standard. Maybe the current issue for us is that we may lack of some of entities and attributes. And for the fifth questions, I think that under the overall consideration of BSI, each country can be certified by specialized agencies and organizations based on the localization needs. And for the last questions, we think there are 3 aspects for the success of the validation. One aspect is that we hope that the ISO standard will be. We hope that the IFC standard will be sooner to be the ISO standard. And the second aspect is that the IFC standard should support the whole disciplines of railway, and the third one is that and the third aspect is that we hope that the IFC standard will be supported by many other organizations such as the CEN, UIC, and some other international organizations. Thank you very much.
So, on behalf of the participants, thank you very much for this conclusion. Any comments, any reactions, any other ideas? Last call. I close this meeting. Have a good lunch. Bye-bye.